Hey, Jamie, how are you?
Hey Chad, what's going on?
It's Tuesday night. It's time for the paranormal lens.
What?
Yeah, you got it. Um, hey, at least I started and we didn't look at each other like, who's going to talk?
What? What?
Anyway, so how are you this week?
I'm soggy from all the rain today, but I think I'm good. Um, it's been pretty low key. Post holiday blues have sunk in. Like there's nothing to do for a while.
Uh-huh.
Um, we haven't had an investigation for a while, so for our paranormal activity. But it's a ways off to another holiday, so as
Mm-hmm.
well, like that time off was nice. So
Yeah. Yeah, it
just kind of
was.
let's get through it.
But we have a team meeting this week. I'm looking forward
Sure,
to seeing everybody. We'll
absolutely.
see the team at the brewery and make plans for this year, talk about last year, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, agreed.
So,
It's gonna be fun.
yeah. Um, something.
Speaking of fun, what are we doing tonight?
Well, speaking of fun, we almost didn't have tonight.
It's true.
My power was out until a few minutes to about an hour ago.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, it stays up.
Throw that mouse some cheese and let him run on the wheel.
Whew, yeah. Um, and I don't know how things are going. I guess they are working there. Facebook's been and StreamYard have been having a little bit of difficulty. I've noticed some other people having issues with it. So hopefully we're there. We're good. So, but we'll keep going. But anyway, what we're talking about tonight is divination. So, do you know what divination is, Jamie?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is what Professor McGonagall teaches for the third year kids at Hogwarts, right? Or
Uh,
is it the fourth years?
I'm not sure. Asking Zoe or Emmy would be a better option
No.
there.
Okay. I'm pretty sure
So,
I'm right.
okay. So, anyway,
Wait, I'm not right. Never mind. Okay.
what I'm going to talk about with divination has to do with a word that comes from a Latin root. Imagine that. Divinare, which means to foresee, foretell, predict, prophesy, or be inspired by God. So that's the root. Divination is defined by Merriam Webster as the art or practice that seeks to foresee or foretell future events or discover hidden knowledge, usually by the interpretation of omens or by the aid of supernatural powers. Okay.
Okay.
So, have you heard of any of the following terms? I'm going to butcher these, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Uh, Catotrepmancy,
No.
crystallomancy, cartomancy, or gastromancy.
I think my face probably gives it away at this point, but no, no.
All right. You may know some of the techniques. Uh, catot- Catotrepmancy is better known as scrying by mirror.
Got that one. Yeah.
Crystallomancy is gazing into a crystal ball, another type of scrying.
Got it.
Cartomancy is divination through the use of cards. So tarot, oracle, angel cards, they all fall into that practice. So what about gastromancy? Break it down. You
I
know
think
what?
this is a pub I was at one time. Um, yeah.
Well, gastro is stomach, right?
Right.
Mansi, we've figured out, is divination. So if you put it together, and maybe we should use this on some of our investigations because you know how my stuff. It's the divination through guttural sounds.
Okay. Oh,
So,
interesting. I
um,
wish I wish Dave was here. We could discuss the sounds that come from a trunk sub,
we
but
could. Uh,
they're not good.
no. Anyway, so one source I found while researching this topic listed almost 350 different types of divination.
Yeah.
So there's a lot out there. Um, so I'm going to spend about 2 minutes on each one, and we'll be
We'll
no.
be here till Thursday.
So some of the better known methods are pendulum, dowsing rods, drawing tarot cards, casting runes, tea leaf reading, automatic writing, and scrying. I'm going to touch on a couple of these. We don't have time to go into depth in anything, to be honest with you. but there's a lot of it out there. Um, so, where did it start? If we look back in history, we can find biblical references to divination. One example is in Genesis 44 1 through 15. Here's an excerpt of that. Joseph in Pharaoh's service once said to his steward and instructed him to go find the cup Joseph used to drink from and use it for divination. The cup was found in his visiting brother Benjamin's sack. Joseph said to his shamed brother, "What is this you have done? Don't you know that a man like me can find things out by divination?" This divinator became a Pharaoh's helper. So this goes back the whole way to Genesis, the beginning, if you believe the biblical timeline. Um, if you want to jump onto that next slide, Jamie, it is believed that the high priests and judges at the tabernacle of Shiloh used divination. Judge Samuel wore the ephod when he served before the tabernacle. The ephod proper was worn outside the robe. From it hung the breastpiece or pouch containing the sacred lots, or Urim and Thummim. The ephod was part of the ceremonial dress of the high priests of ancient Israel. There are beliefs that the ephod was used for oracular purposes, together with the two stones that I named earlier, Urim and Thummim. The book of Samuel implies that whenever Saul or David wished to question Yahweh via oracular methods, they asked the priest to use the ephod. So, going back to um, Saul and David, they believed in divination. They worked with divination. Ancient Greeks turned to divination before and during battles for answers. There were two types of communication that happened. Oracles were people who had direct communication with the gods. It is believed that what they said was verbatim beliefs of what the god had communicated with. They communicated with. Obviously, these people were in high demand and had a busy work schedule, so they weren't available all the time. So another type of divination was used that employed the use of a seer. The seer would interpret signs given by the gods instead of communicating with them directly. And there were two types of ritual that were used for battle, so they could figure out how the battle may go. The first one was done at an encampment, and it was called hiera. And you can jump to the next slide. This required the sacrifice of a sheep and looking at the liver for generic answers to a question. The second type, which happened on the battlefield, was called the sphagia. This entailed the slaughter of a female goat by slitting the throat and watching the last movements and the blood flow of the animal. This was done as both armies were preparing for battle, and the attack didn't happen until the seer interpreted favorable omens. So, found that a little kind of interesting. Many of the Arabic regions used the practice of astrology for divination. Astrologers were able to interpret the celestial forces that ruled the sublunar to predict a variety of information from lunar phases and drought to times of prayer and the foundation of cities. Another type of divination that the Arabics used was what's called geomancy. Now, geomancy is derived from the Greek word geomantier. I got a lot of these words, so it's a lot of fun tonight. Geomantieria, translated to earth divination. Now, this is tied to the Arabic phrase ilm al-ramal, which means science of sand. The Arabic method consisted of sketching 16 random lines of dots in the sand. The same process has survived virtually unchanged throughout its introduction to Europe in the medieval era, and survives to this day in various Arabic countries. Now, geomancy is found in many different countries, including Africa, India, which uses Vatsu Shastra, Korea. China has two different types. It's I Ching in Feng Shui, not Feng Shui, but Feng Shi. And Central Asia uses Kumalak. All these methods center around interpreting features of the earth, be it dirt thrown in the air to patterns drawn in the sand or to scrying rock formations. So, geomancy is just this wide thing that covers, and I forgot to ask you to jump ahead on the slide, but this is some of the interpretation. So it uses the earth to give us guidance. Mesoamerican cultures, divination was a daily part of life and is still practiced in parts of Mexico. The methods used in this area included water and reflective surface scrying, as well as casting lots. Hallucinogenic visions were also used to connect to the greater power. This type of vision seeking is still practiced today by some cultures, not as a method of feeling high, but truly seeking a connection with a higher source of knowledge and intelligence. This method in Mexico sees diviners using hallucinogenic plants including morning glory, Jimson weed, and peyote. So, there's plenty of history that we could discuss, but I'd like to jump into some of the actual techniques that are used. I've mentioned scrying several times. You go ahead and jump to the next slide. Scrying is to gaze into something to receive a vision, message, revelation, or personal guidance. This can be water, a mirror, crystals, or even a crystal ball, but is not limited to those items, as fire and smoke have also been used. The scryer focuses on the object being used. The idea is to focus specifically on the item so that all other things are cleared from the mind. It is believed that doing this allows the scryer to enter a self-induced trance state. When in this trance, thoughts, visions, and other things that come to mind are spoken out, and this may lead to information being interpreted or a deeper state of the trance. It is said that the scryer can actually feel like they are having a drug-induced hallucination. The experience is different for everyone. Some people see the visions in the scrying medium, while others see it in the mind's eye, and yet others see it projected on the back of their eyelids. Others see the visions, but also have auditory feedback helping them to interpret the visions. So, again, just like anything in the supernatural or paranormal, it seems like how the person is changes how the experience happens. So, one of the most famous scryers is Nostradamus. His preferred medium was a bowl of water or a magic mirror. As we enter 2024, here are a few of his predictions, and I'm hoping these don't come to fruition. Turmoil in the British family, including the dethroning of Charles, climate chaos, a confrontation with China. He also predicted that World War III would start 79 years after the end of the Second World War, which would put us in 2024. Being that his native language was French and he lived in the 1500s, interpreting his works had been challenging. This excerpt from one of his works is believed to be about the earthquake in Japan earlier this year. The dry earth will become more parched and there will be great floods. He also said 2024 would see a great famine through pestiferous wave, with believers taking the pestiferous wave to mean an earthquake. It's easy to look back and align what he said with things that have happened, but I almost feel this example is a real stretch. So, any thoughts on our friend Nostradamus?
You know, well, if he was right all the time, we wouldn't be here. So, you know,
This is true.
The world would be uniquely different. I mean, it's interesting though. You know, someone who is this far back in our history has, is still projecting forward. And we're still attentive to it. That is the most interesting part to me. Take it for what you will.
Right. Exactly.
It's like getting a farmer's almanac every year and using it as, the basis for your plans. There was once upon a time, perhaps, when it was, pardon the expression, gospel.
Right. Exactly.
I think we now use it as that more entertainment than anything.
And telling us how much snow we're going to get.
Right. I mean, sometimes, maybe, sometimes, but.
So let's jump onto a different one. Let's go to tarot cards. Tarot card reading, which is part of cartomancy, is another method used for divination. Cartomancy is divination using a deck of cards. So we could do an entire episode on tarot and probably go very long with that, which maybe when we get John on here, my friend John Covey, he does tarot cards, so we could dig into it there. But anyway, so I'm just going to touch on tarot a little bit. Tarot is an ancient system of cards that uses 78 cards divided into major and minor arcana. The major arcana consist of 22 cards representing archetypal symbols of the human journey. The 56 remaining cards are divided into 4 suits: wands, cups, swords, and discs, or pentacles. In readings, the major arcana show up for important issues or placements within the spread. They show how the archetypical forces play out within our lives. The minor arcana point out everyday issues. The court card of each suit represents people, or more often personality traits within ourselves that are being called out for development. As a tool for divination, the tarot draws upon the symbols to stimulate the subconscious mind of the reader. It tends to activate the right brain and call forth intuition. There are also oracle and angels cards that can be used for the same sort of energetic communication. Now, again, this is I found this interesting. Is it's the tarot cards aren't necessarily being or how what do I want to say, manipulated by a spirit, but it's more how we or the reader interprets the cards. If
Mhm.
that makes sense. So,
It does.
um, tarot cards are laid out in spreads, and when you do the spreads, certain things mean different. Certain cards landing there mean different things. Again, I think we could do a long episode on this and have somebody who knows a lot more about it than me do a better explanation. Um, so one that we don't hear much about anymore, but used to be a big thing, is tea leaf reading. Now, I'm going to butcher this one too because I don't know where they come up with these words, but it's tastasography. It's a long word. Um, it's telling fortunes. This ritual is practiced by putting a pinch of tea leaves in a cup and pouring boiling water over them. After steeping for 3 minutes, the sitter, the person who is receiving the reading, drinks all but a small amount of the tea, allowing the tea leaves to float in the remaining tea. The sitter then rapidly moves the cup in a clockwise direction 3 times, sort of spinning the tea leaves out of the bottom. The tea leaves should stick to the sides and clump to the bottom. At this point, the excess tea is poured away, leaving the tea leaves for the seer to interpret. The handle becomes the base point for the sitter. The handle of the mug becomes the base point for the sitter. And the closer they are to this, the leaves are to this, the nearer they are in the time frame. There are three time frames in a teacup. There's the top rim, there's the sides, and then there's the bottom. The top rim designates present, the side designates the near future, and the bottom is the distant future. And the seer will look at the leaves and interpret them based on their knowledge of the practice. So this image that we have up here, I'm not reading this, but I'm gonna read what was online about this one. The cup of tea reveals good fortune for you, um, being pointing to 1, 4, and 5. I see a lover and much success. I see the letter L. Perhaps his name begins with L, but you have not met him yet because he seems to be in the future. Not far distant, perhaps, but not in the present. I see success is about to crown some venture you have undertaken or about to undertake, but there seems to be difficulties closing in upon you in the near future. That's number 2. Uh, says that. Fear not in this teacup. Good fortune more than outweighs the bad. I see a marriage, possibly your own, and this is number 4, or a friend's. It seems certain that this good fortune that is coming to you will be most unexpected. So, out of that little scribble of tea, it means there's good fortune coming. So, there you have it.
Okay.
Ever have a tea reading done, Jamie?
No, but I've known people who've had it,
Uh huh.
and there's I think everybody when you do the first time of anything, you're skeptical.
Uh huh.
But the person I knew, an old friend, I've lost contact with, unfortunately, uh, was adamant that there's accuracy after a couple visits. So,
Uh huh.
um, sure, you know, again, I'm with you. I'm like, okay, how?
Right.
Yeah, but it goes back to the same as with tarot cards too. There is interpretation. So,
Right.
and every deck comes with, for lack of a better term, an instruction manual for what each card means. And it's your responsibility as the reader to understand it before each what each card means before doing your read. so that you're not referencing the book. And it's two friends doing it together.
Right.
It's like two friends having and I'm going in a totally different direction, but it's like having a Ouija board. You know,
Mm-hmm.
two friends have to do this activity. Are you doing it right or you're not? The
Right.
more attention you pay to the practice before you do it, the more accurate you should be, and the more realistic the experience should be. But if
Right.
you're stopping all the time to look at what does this card mean, you know, it's just it's not that it's not a fun experience for those who are expecting more.
Right.
So this certainly takes practice,
Mm-hmm. I think most of these things do,
of
but
course.
um, so let's move on to rune stones. We've got a couple people in our team who
Mhm.
understand rune stones
Yep.
or interpret them. Rune stones seem to date back as far as the first century A.D. and are tied to an ancient Proto-Germanic tradition. There are typically 24 letters of the runic alphabet engraved into wood or stone that are used to tell fortune. The Germanic word base for rune means mystery or secret. Rune sets will come with 24 letter stones and then sometimes will include a blank stone. The blank stone is called Odin's rune. In in Norse mythology, Odin was the god that sacrificed an eye so he could see everything that happened in the world. It is believed that if you get this rune, the information you seek can't be told to you, and you should trust the divine timing. So you're going to wait on that information. The other 24 runes are broken into three different 8 letter groups. These family groups tell different things. The Friar's family tells of current place and material plane in our worldly possession. The second tells about our growth and maturity. The third set tells about our spiritual development and legacy. This is another area we could spend an entire episode talking about, so I'm only going to touch on some things. I've had no experience with runes, so I apologize if I misinterpret any of this. Um, Casting runes is done of 2 ways. The traditional method to cast them is to throw them into a special cloth. Then you read the runes that have landed face up. The second method is to hold a pouch of runes in your non dominant hand and to draw the required amount of runes, focusing on the question you want answered. The number drawn is based upon the layout that you're going to use to read the runes. And you can see a couple layouts there. There are 3, 5, 7, and 9 stone layouts that are typical. I'm going to say they always, but I'm going to break the rule. They always are an odd number. As the runes are pulled, they are placed in the layout. Um, Apparently the most common layouts are a 5 rune cross or the 7 rune V. There's a there's a tradition used for a new year, and that could be a birthday, winter solstice, or New Year's Day that incorporates a 3 by 8 grid. Each placement in these layouts has a specific thing that it represents. This could be past influences or future outcomes. The rune that is placed there is interpreted for that thing. And like I said, I'm not going to try to interpret any of the runes, but I think it could be interesting to learn more about this practice. One thing that is pointed out in almost every one of these areas is the practice has to be taken seriously with a clear mind. The user is allowing the tool to help them connect with a higher self for guidance and intuition. So I think that's interesting that it's tied to that. It's clear mind. You're opening your connection to your higher intelligence. So, um, any any quick thoughts on that one, Jamie?
I think that's something that is a best practice for all the divination practices. You know, an open mind and clarity. Just calmness in practice. You bring chaos, you get chaos. You
Hmm.
know, so it works best when you're calm and open minded. At least experience I've had
Hmm.
so far.
Yeah, not good for my ADHD mind. So,
Fair enough.
let's jump up to the next slide. Talk a little bit about automatic writing. Now, we touched on automatic writing back when I did spirit boards
Mhm.
a little bit. Spirit board is another type of divination, believe it or not. I mean, you're reaching out for answers
Yeah.
to the other side.
Yep.
But we've up until now we've talked about ways of divination that you need a special object, you need a rune, you need a crystal ball, you need something to look at. Automatic writing is something that a seer can do with a piece of paper and a writing implement. And this is one that almost anybody can do if you can get to your mind to that point where it's clear and open. Um, the name for this, the proper name for this is called psychography, or automatic writing. Um, it's done by sitting and writing without consciously creating the words. It's letting the words come to you and flow, but not even thinking about what words you're writing. You're just sort of moving your hand as words come to mind. Um, Again, it is believed that the seer either channels the message from a higher being or they have connected to their higher self and the message is coming from that knowledge. Historical documents from the Song dynasty in China contain references to Fuji or planchette writing. In this Taoist ritual, a forked stick or stylus would be suspended above ashes and sand. The process involved specialized participants. There were two people who would hold the planchette, one who would level the sand, one who would interpret the writing characters, and one who would record the message. This spirit writing was used throughout China until it was forbidden by the Qing Dynasty legal code. Even though it was forbidden, the practice continued and is still used in Taoist folk temples in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Malaysia, and China. The process of doing automatic writing is simple, and I use that term loosely. um, the first thing, like most of the other methods of divination, is to clear the mind. Some people say that music helps with this. Then, with the pen and paper in hand, start writing the first thing that comes to mind. As words come into your brain, write them down. Continue to write the words as they come. It is important not to try to make sense of the words as you're writing them. Let everything flow, and when you sense that you're done, look and try to make sense of what you've written, and interpret the words, phrases, doodles, characters, and sometimes sketches that you've done. Apparently, some people can do an entire sketch and not realize that that's what they've done while they were doing it. Um, some people suggest starting with either a question or a prompt. Again, the idea here is that you just let the communication flow. You open your mind, and just you're not doing it; it's something else doing it for you. Um, I've actually had a little experience with this. I think um, back when I was a youngster, Jamie, when I did confirmation class in church for I was probably 15. We all had to take a part of the service that day and do it, and I somehow got selected to do the sermon, and I didn't know what to write about, so I sat and I wrote sat down and wrote one day and just started writing, and things came to me. And when my dad looked at it and read it, he's like, "Where did you come up with this? This isn't you. This isn't you were like this isn't how you would say things." So I don't know. Maybe it's something I did do and experienced. So do you know anybody who has done this?
I don't, not like at least it's in a formal, any kind of formality.
Uh-huh.
Does doodling when you're bored count?
Maybe.
Yeah, I've done that plenty of times, but no, not necessarily with any intent.
Uh-huh.
Do I know anyone that at least acknowledged it before?
Okay. Let's see. We're gonna jump into the last one here,
Mhm.
and it's one that is probably the most I would say probably one of the most well known. It's called dowsing or water witching. It's been long believed that you can use dowsing to find water underground. Um, the main idea is you use this to find a location to dig or drill for water, but it doesn't have to be water. It can be ores, gemstones, radioactive items, oil, or other buried objects, including grave sites. The practice of dowsing is performed with the use of a dowsing stick, dowsing rods, or a pendulum. The dowsing stick is a forked, Y shaped branch, traditionally willow. The dowser holds the branch by the two arms of the Y and sets the intention of what they are looking for. So, again, this is connecting with higher mind, higher spirit, that you have to say what you're looking for. You can't just walk down the thing and assume that it's going to react to water or what,
Right.
you have to make that connection. Um, as they walk along, the branch will twist in their hands and direct them to what they are looking for, eventually twisting to point straight down to the ground. So that's using the dowsing stick, the Y-shaped one. Dowsing rods are two individual L-shaped rods. The dowser's hands are made into loose fists held close together in front of them. The short part of the L is held in the fist and the long part facing forward. The rods move in the dowser's hands, directing them to the object they are looking for. Once the object is found, the rods will cross. This method of finding water has been used going back to ancient Egypt, although there is no scientific proof on whether or not it works. Experienced dowsers can't even tell you why it works, only that they believe it does. In 1961, the American Society of Dowsers was chartered with 100 members. Their mission statement reads: the American Society of Dowsers, Inc. is a scientific and educational nonprofit organization whose mission is to support, encourage, and promote dowsing and dowsers in a manner consistent with the highest standard of personal integrity and behavior, to provide dowsing education and training to dowsers and non-dowsers alike to bring them to a level of proficiency they are comfortable with, to promote and foster communication and fellowship among all persons in any way interested in dowsing. Now, I mean, you got a group like that, it's got to be a real thing, right?
I just had like this, what the meetings must look like. What
Well,
the dudes
and it's
walk around with sticks and rods.
it's I mean it's the American Society of Dowsers, but now they're worldwide. They're like it is a huge organization.
Yeah.
So now they advocate that dowsing is real and that it's a pseudoscience, but they've added that it's a real thing. Many scientists have no faith in dowsing. An article from a scientist at West Texas A&M, Dr. Christopher Baird, stated that dowsing rods are typically held at a state of unstable equilibrium. This means that any slight movement will make it look like the rods are reacting.
Yep.
It is also said that you can drill almost anywhere and find water. The odds of dowsing and finding water are pretty high. So,
Sure.
there's some skepticism here, and I understand that. Um, Another way of dowsing for water is the map and pendulum method. A pendulum is suspended over a map, and the pendulum should start swaying towards the point where the water would be found. So I didn't know about this one until I started doing research, so I find that kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So, dowsing rods and pendulums, as you know, have made their way into paranormal investigations. The dowsing rods can be used to answer yes and no questions. Typically, the rods will cross for yes, and they will move apart for no. Not always, though, because when I do it, my reactions are opposite. My whatever, and you're supposed to ask actually whenever you start a session what the answer for yes and what the answer for no will be. Um, the pendulum can be used as well. Typically, the pendulum will swing back and forth for yes or swing in a circle for no. Now, what I find interesting is that the belief that holding the pendulum is going to transfer your body movements to the pendulum, but there are people who use a pendulum stand who don't touch the pendulum
Yep.
and are still successful with it. So how does that work? So just going to wrap it up by saying if you work with any of these systems of divination, it is important to accept that there's a wisdom beyond your conscious knowing. Whether you think that the wisdom comes from your subconscious, the collective unconscious, God, your guides, or your higher self, it doesn't matter. For divination to work, you have to have faith and trust in your ability to connect with whatever has that knowledge. So that seems to be the thing that keeps hitting over and over and over is it's you're connecting with the collective, and that's where you're getting the information. So, um, so what are your thoughts on dowsing? I know I sort of skipped
Uh,
over that.
well, I've heard the kind the professor at whatever West Texas A&M, if that's even a real school. I
They
don't
have a
know.
website, Jamie. Come on.
Feels like it is, but whatever. Uh, and you know,
Hmm.
um, I think that has been the biggest complaint, or not complaint, the biggest charge against dowsing rods is that slight variations in your own body, will make the rod move. And
Uh huh.
one of the cool things that I've seen as a counter to that, and it's still, anytime you're holding something, you're going to move. Your body does, like it's just natural things. I can't hold my hands still anyway. I'm always talking with them, so it
Right.
sucks for me to try to do. But and I think, if I'm not mistaken, we on the team have at least a set of rods, maybe two. I'm going to say Melissa has a set, and I believe what she's done to counter that is gotten some small pieces of PVC to go over the handle so that you're holding the PVC and not the rod itself. So it's truly loose inside the tube, if you will. And that takes away some of the claim that you're manipulating them by just turning your hands a little bit. Because you still can, don't get me wrong, because you can tilt a little bit, but it's a much harder mechanism to to um, to fail that way.
Right.
Um, the other knock, and I think it's the same with almost all of these things in our world, as paranormal, in the paranormal field, we work in the dark a lot, right? So, it's what we do.
Yep.
And dowsing rods aren't very good in the dark because you can't see them,
Right.
and one of the coolest things I've seen, and it was at an investigation at the Haldeman, where we're dowsing rods that are LED lights for the rod itself, and they light up that, and it's
Hmm.
very clear, what's going on with them in the dark.
Okay.
And I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know how I feel in the paranormal world about these things. I understand dowsing rods as far as water sourcing and so forth. That's been going on for gazillion years.
Hmm.
Um, but if it works there, it should work anywhere,
Right.
right? And I have seen them in investigations. I have definitely seen activity with them in direct relation to the call and response questions given, with yes no answers, or setting up the controls of what the answer is going to be, whether in is this, out is that. It
Right.
doesn't have to be yes no. Um, but it's those are the easy questions to get answers to.
Hmm.
So I definitely I'm a bit on the fence, you know, um, and a lot and most of the divination practices are going back to what we talked about earlier, interpretive. You know,
Hmm.
so there's a place for them for
Right.
sure in our field and in the work that we do. Um, is it the best tool in the box? Probably not, but it definitely is a good tool to have
Right.
if they're available, and someone knows how to use them correctly.
Right.
I think they can be outstanding tools.
And I think it comes down to, like you said, it's another tool in the box. And if you can get one tool that's saying, giving you an answer, and you can get another tool that's giving you the same answer, and you get a third tool that's giving you the same answer, that's not a coincidence,
No,
right?
it's a lot of
I mean,
tools, first of all.
right, right,
Right, but that's a scientific method, right?
right,
You test and you verify, and you test multiple ways,
right,
get the same results. And if we can, this is what we all want. We want validation and verification of the thing that's happening in the moment we're in. And I appreciate a device, happening, something working, like the K2 going off. I appreciate that,
mm-hmm,
because it is something happening. It's a live event experience. But if I can get a second K2 to go off, or a third, second device of another nature that isn't exactly the same, doing the same thing, activating, then I start to feel more comfortable or confident that we're having a legit experience.
right,
Because devices can be fooled, you know.
mm-hmm,
And the same with dowsing rods and any other divination practices. I'm sure they can be fooled, but again, if something else is working in concert with it and it's doing the same, then I feel much more confident saying it's legit.
mm-hmm. So
Ritual proof, I mean, that's
yeah,
that's really, as a skeptic, I think that's the thing I need the most in all of this. And that's the one thing, for me, what drives me to come out to events and be connected to the field. And I want something tangible as a result. I appreciate experiences. Everybody likes an anecdotal story,
right.
but they need some evidence.
Yep. So I've been successful with dowsing rods in investigations. Again, I one time the when I went down to the one place in Virginia that I went a couple years ago, we were using dowsing rods, and I was actually doing some interpretation, like feeling interpretation, and I was getting yes no answers to me saying what I was feeling from somebody else doing dowsing rods. Um, so that was it was just nice feedback. The other time I was using dowsing rods was when I was a kid. I had read about it, and I knew Dad had some stuff buried underground. Like there were lines that went out to the garage for power and stuff, and I knew where they were. So I'm walking along, and I'm like, well, these don't work because it's not doing it. But 5 feet over here in a different, it's going crazy, and I'm like, Dad, Dad, where are those lines? And I'm like, they're here, right? And I show him where I thought they were. He's like, no, they're 5 feet that way, like where my dowsing rods were going, like they were splaying out to follow the path of the line.
Wow.
It was interesting, and that was just a set of coat hangers that I had cut and bent, you know.
Yeah,
So was it the magnetic thing from the electric wire? I don't know, but it
possibly.
was
Sure.
it was interesting. So
I think there's something else that's missing here, and not necessarily missing, but something to add.
hmm
That is, there are people who have a predisposition for the use of these devices. And it's like, those who are more sensitive than others.
hmm
And you're in the spirit. And we have a couple of folks on the team who are in the spirit, and if they tell me that they're feeling something or they're experiencing something in the spaces that we're in, I trust that. And I'm not, and that's why I want evidence.
right.
I don't have the same connectability to some of the things that are going on around me, environmentally, or spiritually, however you would say it. And that's why I want things like these devices that are hard fact items.
Right. Right.
But you still have to have this sensitivity to utilize them and understand what you're experiencing with them.
hmm
And again, this goes back to the old conversation, and we've said this so many times here. Certainly say it when we're together, as a group. There's a difference between ghost hunters and paranormal investigators. Not everything is paranormal, but a ghost hunter would say, "Look, it's something happening. Look, look, look."
Right.
And the thrill there.
hmm
Just because a rod is crossing, or because another thing is happening, it doesn't necessarily mean it's paranormal.
Right.
And that's where the cross referencing of the opportunity we're in, trying to figure out something else that could also validate, is important for the evidence that we're going to try to capture or present to someone else along the way.
Right.
You see, it's a 2-step process or 3-step process.
hmm Definitely. So
Okay, done.
so wow. um. So what are your thoughts? I mean, this isn't one of those that we can say it's
Yeah,
normal paranormal.
well, but it is. It is to some degree. I mean, it's almost like magic, right?
hmm
What is magic? So, but how these things can be constant. This process and practice of divination has survived forever, right?
Right.
It goes back, and obviously it's in Genesis, but that means it was before, right?
Right.
So we're talking thousands of years, and it's not going away. So I do think there's something here. I think there's something valid in our field and I'm going to say the tool in the box again. That's almost minimizing what it really could do for us. But I don't think we as a group, our team, we're not that invested here yet. We have many who know many things, and with
Right.
especially, I'm intrigued by the runes, the rune readings. I'm
hmm
intrigued, with the scrying concepts, and but I haven't not had enough time, as we are out. We're not out in the world doing this on our free time as much as we probably like, because
Right.
we have regular investigations, and I haven't had the opportunity to sit with those who are practiced in these, these practices.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm very curious, and I'd like to, get more experience there. Um, so it's like there's always room for improvement and room for growth,
Yeah,
too.
definitely.
There was once upon a time when I owned a tarot card deck and was fairly versed in reading cards, and did it for fun with friends and others. It was
Okay.
a Saturday night kind of party trick, if you will. Um, so and I've gotten away from that, over 20 years or more, 25 years probably. So that's still an intriguing place for me as well,
Right.
because again, it's what you want to believe
Hmm.
as much as what the cards read out. You have to trust or choose to believe what was being read,
Right.
for yourself as well. And there are plenty of people who pay a lot of money, to go out and have cards read for them and runes
Yeah.
read for them, and it's almost like a cottage industry that's popped into something much, much more. You remember Miss Cleo,
Hmm.
back in the day, stuff like that.
Yep.
And that's taking away from those who are true professionals. There's the sensationalism of it, but um, there's still there's stuff there too.
Right.
So it's a curious thing for me. It really is.
Hmm.
I'm glad you chose this topic and brought back a lot of stuff to keep in focus.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. And like I said, there we could dig into some of these topics a lot more.
Oh, sure. Well,
Um,
where are you at on this then?
I believe that we are able to connect to the higher conscious, whatever you want to call that collective or whatever. And I think these are just methods that we have figured out how to do that with, um, for people who can't do it in a sit down and meditate way. Um, so I think these are tools that have been developed that are working for people. So, you know, it definitely works for some people, and it doesn't work for everybody. But I think again honing a skill that you have. So,
It just occurred to me, these are all sit down, calm practices. I mean, dowsing rods, maybe not. You can walk with them, but you have to be in the moment, and you have to have a clear mind, and you have to have intentionality. If you're getting your cards read, same thing. We talked about the calmness of the in the rune readings,
hmm.
the intentionality of it. And in our world now, I was just thinking about tarot reading for me 25, 30 years ago, even. Gosh, it was young. Um, you know, barely remember those days. Um, my back didn't hurt back then.
Right.
That's how long ago it was. But we had time because we didn't have the other things yet.
Right.
Like this. We're on a device, and I'm sitting next to my phone. It's lighting up every once in a while, and I keep looking at it, because I'm trained to do that now. We have instant gratification for all the things that are distractions. Now, where all that time ago, we still had phones on a wall somewhere with a cord on it.
Hmm.
You know, and it's interesting to me as we are moving away from spending time in things like this, how these things are going to survive.
Right.
And it's not lost by any means. That's not my point, but it's becoming uh, less of a commitment to continue.
Right.
I don't
Well,
know.
we were joking about earlier how the power went off, and you and I had talked
Right.
about before
Yeah. What's
before
what
we
made me
were on
think of it
here.
too? Yeah.
My power was out, and I was sitting in a room with a candle, just listening and hearing things that I don't hear all the time because I was hearing the rain, I was hearing the wind, I was hearing somebody walking by splashing in the puddles, but you don't hear that because the heater's running, the refrigerator's running, the fan's running, all this stuff is running, and I almost felt like I could take a few minutes when I didn't have power and just go back to that calm state, and it was
Yeah.
so nice,
Yep.
and
Totally appreciate that.
it's how do we make time to do that and to center ourselves and make that connection? It's
It has to be intentional.
Right.
We really
But
have to. Yeah,
even if you're being intentional about it, it's, like when we're at the brewery and the refrigerator's running for the bar,
yeah,
it's like you just have that noise that you can't get away from.
yeah. That's true.
So
There's constant static. It's
yeah,
the white noise of life.
yeah.
You know
It's like you
that
almost have
is
to
all
go
around
hike
us.
into a woods somewhere away from everybody and just sit there and meditate.
I was. I'm going to get a slightly different direction, but in the point, I was walking the dog last night, and I'm down my street,
Hmm.
half a block away, and I looked up, and I see the Big Dipper, and
Uh-huh.
it's clear yet, and the rain hadn't come in yet. It's a calm night, and I see a sky full of stars, and it made me think how much I would like to get back to places that I've been, like New Mexico, where I could get away from the city pretty easily. Phoenix, the same way. I live near South Mountain. I could go, half an hour and be on the other side of the mountain and be out in the desert and look at the stars there. And the sky is so bigger and brighter. And it makes me miss those calm moments like that. And the cities are still nearby, but we have so much light pollution, not noise pollution,
Hmm.
but light pollution here on the East
Right.
Coast because we're all packed together. You ever take a cruise, the same idea. You're out in the ocean,
Hmm.
everything's bigger and brighter. And those moments they're great opportunities to recenter yourself,
Right.
refocus. Some people don't like that because they
Right.
don't know how to.
Hmm.
But as far as I go, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Um, during in 2020, during the middle of COVID, I took the kids on a vacation. We went up to northern PA, and I can't remember what it is, but it's dark sky country for at least Pennsylvania. Um, and it was just amazing. And I enjoyed it. I got my camera out and I got some great pictures. Not that I could see things with the naked eye, but I got some great pictures. We also saw a bright green meteor come through that none of us had a camera. Like, it was one of those things that streaked through and lit up the sky, and we all looked at each other and we're like, "What the hell was that?" but but again, it's just that I enjoyed it, but Zoe and Emmy didn't know what to do with themselves, right? Because
Yeah, it's
yeah, Cherry
fair.
Springs, yeah, Cherry Springs is where, yeah, yeah, that was up there. Um, yeah, it was amazing. I'd love to go again, but again, I'd love to go out west where there's just nothing.
There are still open spaces
Hmm.
that are relatively easy to access that
Hmm.
will change your perspective.
So anyway, yeah. Any final thoughts on that? I mean, we've sort of went down a path here, Jamie.
Yeah, well, that's what we do, right?
Uh-huh.
A good topic, Chad. Thank you. And it brought back a lot of things that are important, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. That's all I got.
All right. Well, let's move forward then. You want to talk about stuff we got coming up?
Well, sure. I can read these slides as well as anybody, right? So we're 2 weeks away from our first public investigation of the year at the brewery, and then we're going to go about once a month from there. So it looks like we're near the third or fourth weekend of each month, except for the April investigation in May. We're going to start moving into mid month. And May 11th is a fun night at Red Mill, and I see Jim's here with us tonight. Jim, you better get ready, so I'm coming, buddy. It's about time. I'm
I,
so excited.
I'm excited too because Melissa already asked if I would work with
I
Ron and Lourdes
saw
again,
that. I'm a little
and I was like,
jealous, just a little jealous.
yeah. Uh-huh.
But I'm sure we'll get a chance to hang out with everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
But we have some cool stuff coming up with public stuff at Booby's Brewery here in Mountjoy, PA. If you're anywhere near us or looking at a paranormal vacation, there's an opportunity to stay at the site as well. It's a bed and breakfast opportunity. It's just a cool spot. So we'll show you how we do our stuff, and we'll let you investigate with us. Use our gear. It's a 3 or 4 hour sometimes event. And it's a National Historic Registered location, so there's a lot of history on top of the paranormal activity. So, and there's a lot to do here in South Central PA as well. Oh yeah, Deming's a great spot.
That'd be great.
It's funny, in places like New Mexico and northeastern Arizona, a little bit of Utah, like the 4 Points area,
Uh-huh.
in Colorado, southwestern Colorado. There are still spots where everything is affordable. Like you can get there, cost effectively, and you can live there cost effectively as well. It's a slower pace as well. The Western lifestyle is kind of manana. Take care of it tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's just, and you will not be short of natural beauty, no matter what time of the year it is. You will get 4 seasons. It's just, I feel like I'm on the tourism board, for this, but um, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it is. I'm very happy I had the opportunity to live out there, and looking forward to getting there for a visit at some point, once again. But
Yep.
beautiful country, fun things to do all year long. Um, and the sky, you can't pass the sky at night. It's just beautiful.
Hmm.
So go if
That's
you can.
great. Yep. Victor, if you want to put a link up in the chat to your video about from Boobies, that'd be great. Would
Oh
love to
yeah.
look at it. Um, Tickets are available. They are
Yep.
online now. And the last time we talked, they weren't on sale, but
Yep. They're up now and running.
they're up now. Um, see, and yeah, if you, so Victor, like I said, if you can put a link to the video, we'd appreciate it. Um, obviously, I didn't have time to update this slide.
Oh wait, we're doing divination again. Oh,
On the
cool.
9th, Groundhog Day. Uh, there's the topic, Jamie. There you
That is
go.
the one. That's a great one, actually. It's
Um,
time. It's time to pull the movie off the shelf.
oh, cool. Thanks, Victor. Um,
Next week. Next week,
next
the
week.
16th. I'm going to cover. And Chad, I was laughing earlier when you were going through the Latin terms and things, that are long and
Uh huh.
challenging. I I'm probably never going to be allowed to go to Japan for all the challenges I'm going to have with the wording and language.
Uh huh.
We were going to talk about the Aokigahara, which is also known as Japan's suicide forest.
Okay.
I hope we have a special guest who's been there, who will be able to join us. But we're at least going to cover it and go through a lot of the interesting things that are there and what's been happening
Mhm.
for quite a while now. So more to come, but next week for sure. Tune in and we'll enlighten.
Okay.
And Devil's Triangle, sir. That's the
Yep.
fun topic
Mm-hmm.
on the
That.
23rd. Any teasers on this one?
No, not yet. I mean, it ties into your Japan. It's in that
Mhm.
part of the world. So.
Yep. So now we're on a geography tour now. See how this works? See?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go ley lines, which again, more geography
Yep.
and quite a bit of interest there. This was a topic I had selected already, but our friend Bert Lynch also wanted us to cover it. So if there's anything that anyone would like us to cover, drop us a line, put it in the chat here, drop it on our social page, and we'll get to it. I promise.
Yep.
We have a bit of a schedule ahead of us, but we can always work stuff in. So
Yep.
we're always interested in what you're interested in too.
Yep.
Appreciate you. Thanks
And
for
then
thanks for joining us.
currently scheduled after this, what we've got listed here, unless we get a guest lined up that I'm working on,
Okay.
telekinesis.
Ooh. Ooh. Okay.
I'm digging into some of the ones that are just not easy to talk about, Jamie. I don't know what
Well,
I've done to myself here.
it's I will tell you this, and I think I'm preaching to the choir when I tell you this, Chad, but when we started this, I didn't know what we were going to get into, you know,
Right.
and, finding the first bunch of topics, what are we on episode, 34 or something like that?
37.
37. Oh gosh, where have I been? You know, we're all this way in, and I've picked topics, you picked topics. When Dave was with us, he picked topics, and we picked things of interest to us that
Right.
we weren't knowledge experts. I can say that for myself. I'm assuming you can as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I am, if nothing more, that we've gotten out of this. I've learned things I didn't know from my own research and the research we've done, and it's really kind of cool. And it's fascinating. And we're not done by any means. There's
Right.
so much stuff out there.
Right.
The Great Yappy. Oh boy, this looks like fun. I'm writing this down right now.
All right.
I'm writing on a list of other things that I've been scribbling as we go through stuff. So it's getting longer, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really cool. Okay, so more to come on these episodes, but here's a tease for the next couple weeks.
Yep.
And then here is our regular social stuff. You found us on Facebook or YouTube, either way. So thank you for joining us. But give us a like on the TikTok, as the old people say, the Instagram as well. Give us a subscribe on YouTube and help us get up there. And of course, like us on Facebook, and we'll like you back. So
Yeah.
yeah.
One thing that we use StreamYard as our streaming service, and Facebook and StreamYard are having some issues right now. So YouTube may be the better way, right, to connect with us for
Okay.
this. We'll see what happens in the next couple weeks.
I see.
But we will be both places all the time. So
Yeah, as long as physically possible, we'll certainly be the Facebook.
so,
YouTube brings so much more stuff though, so it's kind of interesting.
mm-hmm.
All right.
So
Okay.
well, sir,
Here we are.
here we are.
How we get an hour and 2 minutes into this? Holy cow!
I don't know. I thought I was gonna have like 15 minutes of information, and it went on and on. So
Did you say there was some divine intervention and divination?
maybe, maybe. On that note, Jamie, I think we should wrap this up.
I think I want to burst into poof, I'm done.
So, all right. Well, thanks everybody. It's been another great week. We look forward to seeing you either at an investigation. Well, it's 2 weeks out, but
Yep.
hopefully we'll see you back here next week.
Hope to see you then. Thanks, so.
All right.
Have a great week.